Welcome everyone to the inaugural Old Guys in T-shirts. That's us, okay? We may not be cool, but we got T-shirts, okay?
And we're old.
Okay, we're a little old. I'm Brett Danko.
I'm Rob Kron.
And we are, old guys in T-shirts. That's what we are.
We're excited.
And we're very excited to do this, but we're also excited to do college planning.
Indeed.
Okay, that's really important. Let's go ahead and talk about sort of three things that we might want to highlight in this.
How do I help my kid pick where to go to school? How do I help him get in? And how are we going to pay for it?
That's three.
Yeah.
That's
we
1,
can
2,
count.
3. We got that because we know how to do that. Anyway, so the first question about this is picking the right school. And you said, isn't it savings? Saving enough money for it? No, that's actually the last thing we're going to talk about. And Rob and I have spent a lot of time on this. So in terms of saying, okay, what's most important? Most important thing is getting your kid into the place where they want to be and the right environment for them.
Where they're going to be successful.
Yeah. And that's the most important thing. Yeah. Because it's so darn expensive, we can't afford mistakes here. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So I'm a big believer in trying to figure out what kind of school your child likes. And I don't mean the name of the school, just where the school's located. So it could be in a rural area, could be in a city area, could be a big school in a city, a small school in a city, a large school in a rural area, like Penn State. That would be an example. A large school in a big city area, University of Pittsburgh. So I'm using Pennsylvania schools because I'm from Pittsburgh. But we're doing these in Pennsylvania. So one of the things is you can sort of look at that and say, all right, so what are some places that we might want to visit? And the best way to do that is on vacation. So when you're on vacation, for example, we went to Charleston one time. We were driving through Charleston. We were driving through South Carolina in general, going to Atlanta. So we went to the College of Charleston, which is right in the middle of Charleston. So it's a small school in a reasonably large city. So they looked at that, and it wasn't as though they were thinking, oh, I want to go there. Next, they went to University of South Carolina.
Great mascot, by the way.
Great mascot. So the University of South Carolina, which is in the middle of nowhere, but it's huge. It's its own little city there. So just looking at those two places, and they're great schools, but I doubt my kids will apply to either one of them. As of right now, my daughter won't be.
How old were they when you took this trip?
We were 9th grade, 8th grade. So I think that touches on something that's important. And what's that? Starting what?
Yeah, it's never too early to start.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it is, right? Like, clearly, kindergarten might be a little early.
Maybe not for saving.
Good point.
But for the thought process of what they like. I think, 9th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. But you can even at 6, 7, depending on how mature your children are, just going through. If you can take a tour, you don't even have to. I mean, that's nice. But you just drive through. I always like going, especially when kids are in school, to see whether they're happy or not. It's very interesting. You'll go to some campuses and nobody looks happy. Then you go to other campuses and everyone's happy because we've been looking at a lot of schools. But that's one thing just to think about while you're there.
Let me ask you a question on that, Brett. How do you come up with a decision of, hey, we're going to go look at that school in Charleston, or we're going to go to the University of South Carolina? I mean, is there a lot of research up front of these are the schools?
Well, actually, there was a ton of research because, see, we were in Charleston, and we took this carriage ride around Charleston, and they said, that's the College of Charleston. So after we were done with said little ride in the carriage, we went ahead and walked around the campus. We didn't take a tour. And then we said, oh, we're going to pass Columbia, South Carolina. So we did a detour of 10 miles and from the highway, and we went to see it. So you can do lots of research, or you can just, as you're going along, because remember, it's not about the name of the school, it's about the type. Is it rural? Is it large? Is it in a city, etc.? And then you're looking at, okay, is it a school that's based on liberal arts? Is it a school that's based on more of a quantitative or a STEM type thing, engineering type basis? So if your child wants to go and do engineering or go into medical school, maybe that's a different place for them in terms of rather than a liberal arts school.
So those are all refinements that you add once you have a sense of what your child is interested in. So I think one of the things that I learned through this process was initially it's understanding size, location, geography, those types of things. And so one of the things we did is every spring break, starting around 6th, 7th grade, we would go to some part of the country to just experience it. But while we were there, we would schedule college tours at 2 or 3 colleges. Was there any scientific method to why we picked the ones we did? No, right? It was really just to try and begin that process of understanding what do they like, what don't they like. Let's get a vibe for the school. I love your, are people happy or not happy when you're just walking around, because that's important. And then as they're in 10th, 11th grade, right now you have a sense of, engineering is really something that they're gravitating towards. So now we want to narrow our focus to those schools that are strong in engineering.
You touched on geography. I think that's important. Is, do they want to be far away from home? Do they not want to be far away from home? Do the parents want them to be far away from home or not? So I think those are things that will come up. My daughter was looking at schools in California, and I said, this would be awesome. You should just hang out here in California. It's the greatest place ever. Because I'm not a cold person. My daughter's not a cold person. It's beautiful there. It's 70 degrees, 70 to 80 degrees every day. So for me, I was sort of saying, hey, what about looking out there? She doesn't want to go that far.
Well, that's one of the biggest mistakes, right, that I try to caution parents, I know you do as well, is this is the kid's decision, right? This is not your decision, right? It doesn't matter whether you think you would flourish in Southern California, because guess what? That ship has sailed. You've already done it.
We can visit. We can visit. I'm just saying.
You're not getting, you're not enrolling for the next 4 years, right? Your kid is. And so making sure that the place that they're picking and the rationale that's being used is their rationale, not yours.
Yeah. And that's
hard.
something that Rob and I have talked, because you've gone through this, twice, and you're going through it a third time. Right. My daughter's going to be a senior in high school, so just going through it the first time. But it's one of those things I said to her, well, you should go to California. It's so great. And then I realized I was impacting her. And she was like, like her mom had to say, she doesn't want to tell you, she doesn't want to go that far away. So that's one of the things I realized. I was like, oh my God, I'm screwing this process up for her, because it has to be about her. So I think that you learn from that. And also we throw out our little, judgments as to what we think is good or isn't good. And yes, we do need to give advice. That is important. But it is about letting them do it. So now when we go visit schools, my daughter will say, well, what do you think? Or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I love it. It's great. And she goes, so you're really not going to tell me what you think? And I said, no, because I do think it's great. If I was totally against it, I would tell you. But I do think it has to be your decision, and you have to be comfortable there. And that's something that's really important. Because the cost is so high, you really don't want to make mistakes on this. It's just really, really important. So another thing regarding, once you kind of, know in general what you like, usually you can tell at an early age, how do kids want a school that's, I call them the rah-rah schools, schools that are, incredibly passionate about who they are. So I always use the example when I'm talking about it is one of our advisors at our firm went to Notre Dame. And so every email says, go Irish. It doesn't matter what season it is. It doesn't matter if it's football or basketball or lacrosse. It doesn't matter. It's go Irish. So, she's somebody who's passionate about Notre Dame. And it's an awesome school. But your kid may not be doing that. And what did you say once about wearing face paint or something? You'll know, like, by junior, senior year, how excited they get about high school.
There's a whole spectrum there, right? It's how into the rah-rah scene are they, whether it's going to football games or basketball games or whatever the school spirit elements are. Is that something that your kid gravitates towards, or is that something that's, not that big a deal to them? Are they actually a participant in those things? And so that's a whole other decision criteria when you're looking at these schools of, if your child loves, that feeling of camaraderie and going to those big football games, right? Picking some little tiny school with a Division III football team that's 7-on-7, that may be a miss, right?
Yep. That's absolutely right. So I want to just pull back just a little bit, because we've been talking about, yes, we're going to college and that's it. I just want to pull back, because there's two aspects of this. One is actually getting a non-college degree. So going and becoming a welder or a plumber or a hairstylist, something in the trades. And that is something that is huge out there in terms of we need more people in the trades. We need more mechanics, etc. We need more electricians. So it's one of those things of saying, okay, if this is a skill that you have, this is an interest you have, then let's go ahead and explore that as well, because that is education in and of itself. Because you're not just going to say, oh, I'm just going to go start being an electrician or a welder or a carpenter. No, you need training for that. And yes, you're going to have to pay for that training. It might be cheaper than a 4-year degree, but it still is real training. And it's something that's important. And I think that's where listening to your children is to say, okay, is this something that is, on the table for them? I think is really, really important.
Well, we started this by an observation that when you're going to seek out this college, that needs to be their choice, not yours. Yeah. Even before you get to that point, maybe it's, understanding, is that actually a choice they want to make? Are you forcing college on them because that's part of your belief structure? Or have you really had that conversation with them about, is that what they want to do?
And that's really important. I use the example of talking with somebody who they really were pushing their son to college. Their son didn't want to go to college. He actually wanted to become a welder. And now he's 20 or 21 making $10,000 a month. So $120,000 a year as a welder.
Is he happy?
He's incredibly happy, because that's what I said. Is he happy?
That's
he's
the
like,
point.
He's so happy.
Yeah.
Because he's not married, he doesn't have kids, and he's making $120,000 a year. So why wouldn't he be happy? Right. So it's one of those things where for he's really happy doing what he wants to do. So I think those are things to think about. I'm a big fan of Mike Rowe, who he did America's Dirtiest Jobs, I think, and he's written a number of things. But I love watching him, and I've read different things that he's written, because he talks about this, like just talking to your kids about it and see if they are interested in it. So that's one aspect. The other aspect of it, if they
Community college?
That's what we're going to talk about. The other aspect is if they don't necessarily want to go away, or they're unsure about what they want to do, is possibly going to community college, or actually taking a gap year and not doing anything except for, say, work or travel or something like that, but having a plan for that gap year, 1 year. And
I'm
then
hearing a lot more about that gap year.
Yep.
Right? There are a lot more people that are exploring that and taking advantage.
Because I think it's so expensive. Yeah. College is so expensive, you don't want to make that mistake. So if they say, I'm really not sure, but I don't want to do a gap year, what I'd like to do is just go to community college. Okay, well, let's talk about community college, because one of the things that goes along with that is they can actually take a whole bunch of different classes. Also, as long as they get their 2-year associate degree, and I believe
That's
all
important.
States, so it isn't just taking the classes, right. You have to actually get your 2-year associate degree. Then they're accepted at every state institution.
The credits are.
So what's nice is that so we're in Pennsylvania here. So in Pennsylvania, it says Pitt or Penn State on your diploma, but you may have done 2 years at community college and then done the other 2 years at Pitt or Penn State. So that's something just to keep in mind, because that's what it'll say on your diploma is Pitt or Penn State, not that you were in 2 years of community college, and you save a whole bunch of money as well. So these are things just to really think about. I think as, I work with a lot of clients regarding this, and they'll say, well, I want them to go to this school because that's where we went. Or I want them to do this because that's what I do. I get it that as parents, we love our children so much. We don't want them to make mistakes. But part of it is letting them in on the process, because they're going to do what they want to do. And if you force them to go someplace, and I've seen it, and I know you've seen it, we have friends that have done that before, then the kid blows it off, and now you're a year or 2 year with lots of loans and or lots of money spent, and you don't have any credits to show for it. And that's a problem. So possibly going to community college, possibly taking a gap year, I think those are things that are important. So that's sort of what we wanted to do, just in general, is just sort of give like an overview of possibly looking at what type of environments they would like, then looking at more specifically at what type of studies they would like, and getting into it a little bit more specifically on that. So we kind of talked about that. Let's talk about actually how do we help them get in.